Hang on, let me.
Okay, I'm green. I got a green, so it made it. And then you just say, "We are live," and then I'll bust in.
All right, we are live, sir.
Thank you very much. I think that was a smoother opening transition than the ones we've had in the past.
Oh, we're getting better.
Yeah, we're getting better. All of the behind the scenes. I like to let the people in a little bit behind the scenes and in our usually a mad rush to get the live working. But it's another episode of the Red Star Roundtable. I'm Mike, and as always, here with my broskies. Why don't you give yourselves a shout out?
How's it going, everybody? Josh here again, as always, like Mike said, to talk about some gaming and see what we can come up with.
That's right.
And this is Will, as always, your resident hillbilly gamer.
That's right. The guy, what's funny is during pre-show planning, we were talking about surgeries and stuff like that. Just a little, just this is apropos to nothing. And so I'm gonna have surgery, just a minor thing in a few weeks, a procedure that Will has already gone through, and we were discussing that, the recovery time it's not particularly long, and I consider myself a giant weenie versus Will and his manly beard. So Will's like, right, and it's like Will's like the recovery time is like 3 or 4 days. I'm like, okay, so that's like 6 weeks for me, considering that Will is a man who builds his own shed. And I'm a guy who will save and have somebody build it for. I would hire Will to build it for. Like I said, it was apropos to nothing, but
you couldn't afford it.
Yeah, I couldn't afford Will. The point is that Will, one of the awesome hosts of this show, is a man's man, and me and Josh look up to his righteousness every time. But it's not just us three. We do have a guest today. One of my favorite people in the entire world.
Who do we have with us, Mike?
One of my favorite people in the entire world. Our close friend, Cesar Alzaga. What is up, my man? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's a blast to be a part of this. I'm looking forward to diving deep into some topics concerning the community and whatnot. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
No, we'd love having you. I would be remiss. I want to take this time that have you on the channel, and today we're going to be talking about how to level up your community. And we can't talk about community without talking about Cesar. So I just want to tell you that I speak for a lot of people within our group that especially appreciate you and all the awesome stuff that you have done for us in the past 2 years.
Thank you.
You are, I think, one of the best ambassadors for hobby, both you and Will. That Red Star Gaming is privileged to have. So, I love being your friend, and I'm so glad that you're on, because a lot of what we're going to talk about today, is basically Josh and I's looking at what you and Will have done and going, people out there in the YouTube land, or people out there really should take notice of these things you've done, the success stories that you guys have had, or that you've had. And we want to do a podcast to kind of like broadcast that to hopefully inspire other people. But I think I'm not trying to get cheesy, but I know I speak for a ton of people, Josh, myself, that specifically to Will and to Cesar, you guys are freaking amazing. And everything that you do and all the work that you've put in to help build all this awesome stuff is appreciated.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, that just kind of solidifies everything that I think that we do as a community, and people that organize events and stuff like that. It goes to not just get people into gaming and playing the games and rolling dice, which is obviously something we love, but Caesar's proof in the pudding that this game that's brought us all together has made us more than just players. I mean, we're like our own little Red Star family, I like to think. So, and I think that, everybody here is proof that all that is the case. So it's good to be here and talking about this and continue building our community, and hopefully pass some of our experience off to other folks so they can build up their communities in their respective areas.
Right. And we got a lot of awesome stuff to talk about. But before we get into that, we want to talk about some hobby that we did. So obviously we've had 2 weeks off from the last one, and of course the Thanksgiving break. I've had some time off of work, and it's been kind of like a lot of like some free time specifically. Anybody worked on anything cool?
I haven't worked on anything, but I've been doing my hand exercises every day.
Okay.
And I have been buying models, though. Does that count as hobbying? Because I really think that's the main part of the hobby is just stacking sprues in my closet.
That's actually one of the biggest parts of the 40K or the Games Workshop hobby is collecting sprues, essentially.
I actually took advantage of this whole Black Friday sale, and one of the local stores that I have yet to visit, called the Steeped Meeple, had a pretty good sale, and I went over there, and they had a 50% off of Marvel Crisis Protocol, and
Wow!
I had to call my wife, and I go, I apologize ahead of time. Don't be mad when I get home.
Yeah, but it's like how much did you spend? Say $600. She's like, $600. He's like, I'm just joking. It was $200. See how much I just saved you in this short conversation. I didn't take any advantage of any sales, but I picked up probably my most anticipated box set, which was the Blood Bowl Season 2 box set, and it is 100% pure sexy. Every aspect of it.
Oh, I can imagine. I do want to pose this one question to the group. I just thought of it right now. Did anybody get any hobbying in on Thanksgiving Day? Did you paint something? Did you build something right there at the table with your turkey?
I did paint something beforehand, or excuse me, I did build something beforehand. I've been actually building a lot of Infinity as of recently, and it was based on a kind of a wild hair. They just released 4th edition for Infinity, so some things have been streamlined and changed. So I ended up picking up Combined Army, and I've been building the heck out of them. And I've been I based some of those pieces, but I don't consider that quite painting until you actually get in some details and building. But they do have some paint on them.
And if I am not mistaken, those are metal models, right?
I was getting ready to say, yeah. Yeah.
How's that metal model treating you?
Man, that really, it took me back because I didn't realize, how much it's so much easier when you got plastic. It's so much faster versus with metal. Your time's filing, you're trying to get stuff fit right. So it brought me back a little bit, and it makes me appreciate some things. But I do like the metal minis and the detail that Infinity puts in those minis for the metal. That it's just amazing. It's really, really good.
I have a question because I've always been interested. I've always kept Infinity almost like just at an arm's reach. But I've noticed some of the box sets, and looking at the rules, they have different weapons and stuff. Do they have weapon options, or is it 100% molded?
No, that's actually what I've been building the last 30 minutes, or actually last hour, are a set of drones, and I magnetized the weapon options because the drones, based on the way you equip them, they provide a different kind of support, or a different kind of attack. So yeah, it's not just one and done. You do get into magnetizing as well, so you have the weapons options.
Okay, but like say I buy a squad of infantry. We're digressing into Infinity here for a second, but I've always wanted to know this. If I have I buy just a squad of infantry, and I've noticed when I read the rule books that infantry could be armed with an LMG, an SMG, or an assault rifle. Are all of those? Is there one of each, or is the model already have the SMG in his hand, all molded in one piece, or do they all have where you can glue an SM, like the options?
Yeah, so in the box, you might not necessarily have all the options to do twice, but you at least, if they have alternate weapons, they'll have the alternate weapon. So what you might have to do in order to run 2 of the same type of weapon would be to buy 2.
Okay.
But then you'll still want to magnetize, because you might want to say, hey, I'm going to have these 4 guys came in a box, and I want 2 of these particular weapon, and I want 1 of this weapon. So yes, okay. They do change. Depends.
Okay, and that's those of us, especially with Blood Bowl, like you want 4 gutter runners, you got to buy a second box. So that's not so outlandish to those of us that are used to it. We do have some hobby notes though. Will, what's came up for pre-order this weekend?
Now, this week is the Blood Angel supplement, but also the Gladiator variant tank is coming out for the Primaris, and the Primaris Assault Intercessors, which I'm pretty excited for, especially since it comes with some Thunderhammers and Power Fists in there for the Sergeants. And then they also have some dice, I believe, to go along with that supplement. So it'll be some exciting times for the Blood Angels players.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's just exciting time for anybody with 3+ armor save, 3 ballistic skill, 3+ weapon skill, reroll everything, 1 CP stratagem where the opponent has to box up his entire army and put it back on the shelf.
Well,
that's my favorite one.
That's your favorite.
Well, before we go too far down that rabbit hole, at least some of the things I have seen for the Crusade out of both the upcoming Blood Angel supplement, but also in the Space Wolves supplement, the Crusade stuff in there is ace. I have nothing but great things to say about that. So we got that to look forward to. Also, they announced today that some Warcry, the new was it Catechism?
Catacombs.
Like that.
Catacomb,
that's going to be coming out. So it'll be kind of interesting to see kind of how when kill teams went to the indoor arena maps to see that same transition for Warcry. It'll be interesting for sure.
Right. It's like the 2D boards.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always found like when Kill Team did that, I found that Kill Team became hella competitive when it went 2D and it just kind of took out all the terrain and stuff.
I liked it a lot. So
that was my favorite. What was it called? Arena.
Arena,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was good at first, and don't get me wrong, it's still people that love the hell out of it, and they'll play the competitive. But it almost became like you got to the point where you knew certain things are going to happen.
Like the drones blocking the doors.
Yeah, some of that stuff, that's the kind of drawback from it. But it's definitely still good.
Yeah, for sure. And
okay, Mike.
Yeah. Yes.
I know you're just roaring to talk about it. Tell us about your new box you got.
So, I know Simon's listening. He's a big Blood Bowl fan, and my kind of personal Blood Bowl coach. But the season 2 box set is out, and it's
what's in it, man. What's in it?
Well, you get this is so great. Just before I say what's in it, it's almost as though like if you were a Space Marine player when the Indominus came out, like you were excited, right? All this stuff in here is dope. It looks all killy and powerful. And then of course it was also a Necron refresh range, also kind of the Necron half. So if you were a Necron player, like you were really excited about it. So I've never had a box set that affected me. I was like, I'm excited about this thing because I play Astra Mill and they don't get box sets. But this is the first time I bought this thing, and I am so 100% on the gas. This is the best box that I've ever seen for the value. So I opened it up, came with the 2 teams, Imperial Nobility team. And in case you're wondering, which I know some of you are, unlike the last Blood Bowl starter set, it's the full team. So your roster, you got enough to field your 2 blitzers. You have 2 blitzers on a roster. You got 2 throwers. The 2 throwers are in there. And then 4 bodyguards on a roster. 4 bodyguards are in there. And everything else is linemen. So you can field that whole team, unlike the humans, where I think you only got 2 catchers and 2 blitzers. And you'd have to buy another human box team to kind of max out the options. Because specifically for the human team, you get 0-4 blitzers. You definitely want on the field 4 blitzers, and then also the orcs in the last edition didn't have all of the I think blitzers and black orcs, I believe. So again, you had to buy another box. This one, both teams are completely full. Like, it's great. And on the black orc side, it's so the teams come in 2 similar mirror sprues that are identical. So if everything's on one sprue, you get everything on the second one. So the Imperial Nobility has all your options. You get both sprues. You get all the positionals, like Simon just mentioned in the chat. But the Orc team, and this is the beauty, and I hope that future Blood Bowl teams come up with this, because they're the same sprue, each Black Orc has 2 heads, so that they're not the exact same. So even though they'll have the same body pose, they have different face masks or different headgear. I thought that was so freaking awesome. And I know some other ones. I think the elves have different, like Elven Union might have different heads or something like that. But
let's not forget, you're also getting the big boys for both teams. You're getting the troll and the ogre.
You get 2 bigs. Yeah, you get a bit for
and
each
the
of them.
star players.
And the star players, and to throw in just a little bit to just kind of grease the skids if you're still on the ropes, you get 2 referees. So
really?
Yeah, you get an elf referee and a dwarf referee. And of course,
absolutely. So it's different than last time where it was a goblin and a halfling. Now it's the elf and the dwarf.
That's right. Well, the last box set didn't have the refs.
Well, in the previous iteration of Blood Bowl, should I say?
Right.
They Forge World had the
that's
clan
right.
pack that you could get of the somebody gifted it to me, and that's the reason I even knew about it. But they were cool little models to have. For sure.
So you get the star players, the bigs, the refs, the dice. The dice quality is a little bit better because they're more of the translucent dice instead of the full color dice like last time. You get another pitch, looks very similar. I haven't compared it to the last editions. And the dugout, and thank God, is smaller and more streamlined. It's not massive. So,
but that's the theme for the whole edition. I got to flip through the book myself, and it seems like they streamlined everything. So no more of the rule of 7.
Yes,
trying to count it down and do the math to figure it out.
No more plus one for an attempt, and it's like, okay, so you're +1 to try to dodge, but also -1 if you're dodging into a block that is marked, or so it's all of that is now all that is gone. It's now in the kind of like 40K. What do you call that? It's like target numbers now for the stats.
Yeah. It's
okay.
It's like you need a 4+ to do this maneuver, or a 3+ to do this maneuver. So it's just like 8th edition and Age of Sigmar rules, which I kind of like because it could get complicated for new players, and I think that will make the game easier for new players to be able to pick up, and hopefully we'll get more people playing the game.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm hearing is there's everything in the box in this new starter set. It's an actual starter set. You don't have to buy anything else. You can bust that open, and you and your buddy can just go to town.
And it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the one they did last edition.
Yeah, you get hella more. It's cheaper. The last edition. Oh, and you get the rule book too, and it's the hardback.
Hardback. Like the almanac.
Yeah, hardback rule book. So
great box.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, it's not even close when you compare the last 2 editions. But I'm excited to play. I've played Blood Bowl with my wife before, and yeah, she beat me. This one, I'm excited to try that and see what she thinks. When now that I don't have to explain. Okay, the +1 for attempt, and then -1, and then a minus another one. So now we're at 5 or 6. It's like 3, and now you just do your minus modifiers if they're applicable. So that's great.
So, and one last thing I wanted to mention, and this is just me being petty me because it's not even December yet, but there is still no pre-release information about the Death Guard Codex or when it's going to come out. So I am pretty salty, and that we haven't heard nothing about that yet. But hopefully we get it before Christmas, and it won't be like October last year where they're like, you can pre-order it this month, but it comes out next month.
Yeah, the October was my favorite community. The October incident was my favorite community flipping out. Just how childish and what is it? It spoiled the community is. When before you wouldn't even get a codex for 3 editions, and now everybody's freaking the hell out.
But we'll see. They did say December, so hopefully my Booger boys will get their book this month, and I'm ready to start that Crusade campaign coming up. So
yeah, it's gonna be. You'll get like the week, where they roll out some stuff, and they'll show like some stats, and then they'll throw a new Marine vehicle in there. And then Wednesday back.
well, there's still a lot of Marine stuff that they haven't released.
Yeah.
So, but I'm hoping that they're going to do all that with the Dark Angels Codex that's supposed to come out, supplement that's supposed to come out in January. So save all the power armor for January and let me have my Booger Boys book.
Yep.
I was seeing in the rumor mill that the Marines are going to get a new vehicle that actually produces cellophane, so you can just repackage your enemy's sprue
Yeah,
box.
there you go. And just shrink wrap it. I love, and my favorite for the my not hatred is the wrong word, for my annoyance of Space Marines is well documented. But I do love going on the internet and seeing the overreactions to the previews for the Blood Angels. Blood Angels, and it makes sense narratively, right? Horus killed their Primarch, right? Mm-hmm. So they have, I think it's 1 CP. Maybe 2. Basically, I don't know. But there's a stratagem to reroll all hits and wounds against Black Legion, which is pretty nuts. For those that don't know how awesome all hits and wounds are, we have Vengeance. The Astra Militarum has Vengeance for Cadia, and it is so stupidly overpowered. It's beautiful. But that's on an army that hits on 4, doesn't have access to aura rerolls and stuff like that. So I mean, just the output of you're screwed if you're Black Legion, you play a Blood Angel player, and they bust out that strategy. It's going to be beautiful.
Simon is right.
Yeah,
Simon's calling you out.
I don't play it. I'm not going to get salted. I'm not a Black Legion player. I just yeah. But anyways, I think we also have a show to do.
Yeah, I think we went off the rails enough.
I think last time it was our digression on LA Awesome.
Oh yeah, that was last show. Yeah,
that was last show. Anyways, Will, why don't you get us back on track, man?
So the next thing that the actual topic of our show, and not us sitting here ranting and lamenting the things that may or may not come out, but the topic of our show is actually leveling up your community, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we have done, that we've had good experiences to be able to level up our community, to make it grow, to get more people in, and just to increase the overall value of the community that's here. Hopefully that if you're out there listening, you might be able to take something away, or hey, if we didn't cover something or something that we could do better, let us know in the comments, or shoot us an email. We'd be happy to hear it. So first thing we're going to talk about today is that I want to hear from Caesar about his experience, especially with kill teams and getting that going, and just give us a little bit of rundown about your experience getting that started. And to be fair, you built a lot of that up from scratch, and I'd really like to hear your testimony about that if we could.
Sure. Yeah. Well, kill team. A lot of it. Everybody was playing core, and just figuring it out, whatnot, and really there was like maybe two stores really that had kill teams that was actively being played. And so really looking around, what you have is people kind of in these pockets of where they're playing in their little groups. And what I did was pretty much just kind of look at those other groups and start. At the time, Jake Flores was playing over there at Night's Watch, and I'd seen that they had kill team kind of happening on a regular basis, and so I kind of reached out to him, and I was like, hey man, I'm going to come out and see what you guys, how your kill team scene is going, and meet some of you guys and play a game, throw some dice. And it kind of carried on over into the same situation with Dragon's Lair, where, Mike and Andy, that's how we ended up meeting up and started playing. And so I think that in itself is kind of the beginning portions of, I think, what made in a lot of ways the community kind of get bigger, because we kind of joined groups that typically wouldn't play. That was the initial foundation was built with just showing up, playing, coordinating with each other. And then as we were playing and we started getting more into the tournaments organization, organizing tournaments versus do campaigns, because campaigns kind of suck for the kill team. We ended up started doing events, and during the time where we were doing events, there were things such as deployment zones, like they're laid out, and it can take time setting up a deployment zone, and then your partner having the right kind of, they get kind of weird. Some of them were like a triangle where the long edge is actually kind of sweeping in, and so that deployment's kind of hard to call. Like you're going to play that versus like say like your standard wedge, or like having an 8-inch deployment straight across the board. So I ended up creating some deployment zones and sitting down with even some other vendors within Etsy, and we created objective markers. I was talking to a gentleman from Mr. Laser. He ended up creating objective markers. We were talking to say, hey man, you think you can create this? And he's like, maybe I can do it over from like plastic, some hard plastic. And it's like, we kind of went back and forth, and we came up with a design, and he was like, hey, really the design came from like one of the banners that Mike did. And so we're like, hey, let's see about throwing that on some objective markers. And so we've done that. And then recently we ended up creating a fort, I guess you could say, based on not wanting to go the route that we have for terrain through, what is it? Name of the website for the 2021 Frontline Gaming. Yep.
Yeah.
So not going the route where I wanted to, trying to spend crazy money through Frontline Gaming to get their particular terrain, we had to adjust, and I ended up reaching back out to
Death Ray Design?
Death Ray. God, man, I'm drawing a blank on some of these things. So yeah, Death Ray, and ended up being the owner from Death Ray personally was like, hey, I'll take this on, let's talk. And it's like, here's what I'm trying to get done, and it'd be really kind of cool. I'd rather see if we could figure something out with you guys versus going out and paying Frontline, to buy all their terrain just to set up one table or set up 10 tables. And so I already have quite a bit of their stuff. And so he sent initial design, and then I was like, hey, maybe consider being able to integrate some of the other terrain that you have already in there, be able to add to it, make it more modular, allow for it to be multi-level, a piece that can be multi-level. And so he came back, and after about 2 more designs, we ended up coming up with the concept which was delivered for the tournament that we ended up rescheduling. So a lot of little stuff. A lot of it was, even like sitting here, and Will would say, hey, have you ever thought about using colored rubber bands for like who's the leader, the specialists? And so a lot of it is just taking hints from other people and other games and bringing them to Kill Team. And for the most part, I think most of the time everybody's been pretty receptive and positive about some of the things that we've been able to do in just Kill Team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a couple of the main points that we wanted to cover today, which is you engaged local stores, and you saw where the community was at, and then you actually took the initiative to like join forces with. So what happens, and I'm sure it's not unique to San Antonio, but people have their stores that they go to because it's close to them or their friends go there. I happen to go to a store that's like right down the street, and they became super good friends. So that's where we played. But there are other places in town that communities are. So you had these little pockets of people, and then Caesar kind of like, we should all join up and then all go to a particular store, which I think which is why we had that great Kill Team run. I think that you taking the initiative to do that was smart. I'm not sure if that was like super intended or just this is a good idea, we should do that. But I think that if you're out there and you want to be proactive in playing a game or growing a game, one of the best things you can do is to engage the other stores that you probably don't play at, if that's available.
Yeah, like seeking out other players that are playing your game, and like just going and finding them and seeing where they are, how they're coordinating, and trying to get everybody together. And really, like with Kill Team, like we were saying, for about a year, we were able to jump around different stores, connect a bunch of different groups together, and just get everybody going. And we had some real great events about a year ago.
Yeah.
But it's going to take somebody doing what Caesar did, and the way we the terminology that we came up with was to be the ambassador for your game, and that's to go out and engage as the ambassador, to be the face, share your passion with other people, go out and find the other people that's also doing it, and Caesar was great at the ambassador, and he was able, in my opinion, to unify the Kill Team community in San Antonio from 6-8 different stores that were all scattered throughout the city, but he was that glue that solidified the Kill Team community together and served as the ambassador.
That's right. Yeah, which is, I think that if, let's say you play Crisis Protocol, that's your game, you love it, you're down with it, you go on Black Friday and you buy out the whole damn store. Okay. But you know what I mean? But like, you don't know a lot of people that play it. So you do a little bit of research. Oh, there's like 3 guys across town that play that. I've heard. Well, you plus them equals 4 guys that play that. Well, there's a Tuesday night group that plays, just 2 guys, 2 friends that play it at this store. You know what I mean? Well, now you grow and you grow and you grow, and you got to find where those people are, because they're playing it. There's games being played for the most part. You're not alone in buying that. I mean, these things are on the shelf. You ever notice you go to a store, like I would go to my local store, Crisis Protocol. I was like, man, these look awesome. And then I go, and then the box set's gone. I'm like, well, shit, somebody's playing this game. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah, the box is gone. So it's going to take a little bit of initiative if you want to grow a community based on a particular game. Then it might have to, and you're looking for somebody, it might have to be you, I think, is one of the best.
And
yeah.
Another thing I can add to that is that something that works really well whenever you're trying to grow a game is learn to plays. Because as hobbyists, we all just want to play something. A lot of times we just don't have the models and don't know how to play. But if I hear somebody's doing, like, let's say, Crisis Protocol, learn to play, I'm going to show up. If they've got models and dice and they're willing to teach, hey, and honestly, I've run a few myself, and they're a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, even before you're engaging the store or having to learn to play, is I think when you start out, let's just say a well-established game like Kill Team, for instance, I think it's a little easier to do it. But like, even before you go out and you start doing research, I think, Mike, you were hitting on it a little bit, is that you want to look at the game itself, and you're going to want to look at what's the rules, like kind of what's going on with this, and what's the level of difficulty associated. Is it really easy, or is it one of those games that's going to, like, you're going to try to teach somebody, or you're going to try to learn yourself, and you're never going to get it down? And I think those are barriers to growing the community for a particular game. Do you have access to minis? There's like, I know Spectre Ops is a really cool game, but there are challenges associated with, supply and demand associated with being able to even get the minis.
Right.
So those are things, when you're talking about trying to grow something right from the very beginning, even before we get to talking about learning to play nights, or even talking about engaging with the local store, which could be a part of, hey, I need to talk to the store. Is this one of those games where, it's only going to be like 2 people that really get it? Or is it going to be one of these games that people just really don't even care for? You might get it. Does everybody else potentially going to get it, right? How easy is it to get into the game?
I think that's a great point. And I would also add that one of the things that has been difficult in building certain communities before, like I used to play Wild West Exodus religiously, but it needed a very specific type of terrain that isn't like Warhammer or Kill Team or anything else. It was all this Western themed buildings and stuff. And so getting the terrain to be able to play that was difficult. And I think that having the appropriate tools to play the game really lends itself to making the game look better for spectators and people that want to play. So that's definitely a barrier to consider as well.
Yeah, but I think that before I start a game, I got to see if there's even a community, no matter how small. I mean, there's research that is to be had if you want to do this. I mean, like we're talking like step 0. If I'm gonna buy Infinity, go and buy an Infinity starter set. I mean, is there anybody in town that even plays this? You know what I mean? Because you can't build a community if it's just you, unless you. I mean,
well, you can. It's just,
yeah,
it's just a lot harder.
It's a lot harder. Yeah.
Right?
So
well, and when I started Wild West Exodus, that was a problem that I had. There was nobody playing, so my initial investment was a lot more significant because I had to buy multiple armies, if you will, so that I could teach myself how to play and then have stuff to loan to other people. Be like, hey, you want to play? You don't even have to buy nothing. Just use my stuff so that I could get other people to play.
Right, and this just hit me too. Like, in regards to trying to grow a community, if you want to be an ambassador, one of the best genres, or I guess subgenres, as it were, is the skirmish games, because they have low model counts, which means that monetary investment, either on your half or goading somebody into also playing it who enjoyed it, is lower than, say, 40K. Even to this day, it's kind of weird. I always wonder how 40K grew so big because the investment is so massive. But that's not the case for Crisis Protocol. That's not the case for Blood Bowl or Warcry, where you can go and buy a team and you can field it for $40, $35.
Well,
so
I think that's a great point. And so and Josh was hitting on this a little earlier about organized teaching games. Red Star used to do a thing called Friday night fights, fluff fights, if you will. And we met every Friday and we taught people how to play. So as old heads that have been playing for a while, we said, hey, if you want to show up and play, meet us here at this store at this time, and we're going to teach you how to play, no matter how little or how much experience you have. But we kept those games small, just like you're saying, Mike. We made sure that the games that were played were, like 750 points or something like that, if I remember correctly. And we kept them small intentionally because it's less models to keep track of, less rules to keep track of, and you can actually learn the fundamentals of the game rather than having to teach yourself, you got 60 units on the table and have to learn every rule for every single one of them.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Caesar.
I was going to say, just to piggyback, like the Friday night fluff fights, those really, I mean, we used to have a little group and we kind of stuck to ourselves over the Alien Worlds. And I remember I think Will had walked by. He's like, this is a new guy trying to learn, how to play the game. I don't see why he doesn't show up to Friday night games. And I was just like, holy crap. And so that was actually one of the best things that ever happened to me, is showing up on a Friday night and having, Will, the original ambassador of that I was familiar with, and Jay, those two are the two individuals that kind of got me really, really going with 40K.
We were very fortunate with the success that came from those organized Friday night fluff fights, because we did that for 3 years, I think, that went on, where we taught people how to play, and that really got a lot of people into the game and grew our club, not just the community in San Antonio, but a lot of our members came out of those games. And we were sure to do things like pair up a new player with a veteran player, so the veteran player could walk them through the turn sequences and how things worked, and really work on those fundamentals. And a lot of the people that started out going to those events as new players then were there long enough to start teaching other players how to play the game. And so the growth from that was exponential, but it really helped. If you're a new player, it kind of lessens some of that anxiety to go, well, I don't want to just show up to this major event and not know how to play. But you knew that if you came to the Friday night fluff fights, everybody was learning. That's specifically the intention of that organized teaching game event. And I think it lowers some of the anxiety of going and meeting new people, and allows you to get in a proper mindset of learning the game.
I'm glad you mentioned the anxiety, because one of the things that I would highly recommend / advise is to not be scared. It can be daunting. I played, the first person I ever started playing against was Andy, because I had met him and we seemed to get along fine. I'm sorry, other than my personal friends that I knew, that like the first person I reached out that weren't like my buddies that we got into the hobby together was Andy. And then it was like, okay, well, I met this guy at the store and he was a cool guy and we start playing, and then I meet other cool people. But then it's like, well, am I going to go to another store where I don't know anybody? And although I'm an extrovert and everybody that knows me will be like, hey, how you doing? And I'll give you high fives and stuff like that. It was scary to go to the first time I went to Heroes Retreat, to go there and where it wasn't my friends, you know what I mean? And it was another group of people that all played the same game I liked, but I'm going to have to go out and go, hi, I'm Mike. You know what I mean? I play Kill Team, I play 40K, and you want to throw some dice. That's how I met like Tommy. I went up to Will, introduced myself to Will because on our your real out in front on the Facebook group page, and I was like, okay, I know this is Will. I can from the Facebook to you know what I mean. I'm gonna go introduce myself to this dude, and then and we became the best friends in the entire world.
But yeah, that's a big thing, and see, unlike you, who is an extrovert, I'm very introverted. I know that I may not come off that way on the Facebook, but that's very easy to not be introverted on Facebook. but even in in the actual events where we're playing and stuff like that, I have a lot of anxiety, and I'm very introverted, and at the end of the day, it's exhausting for me to be out there. But I force myself to do it, and I've met some of the best people I've ever met in my life, and came close friends, like you're saying, with these folks that hopefully lifelong friends from these games. And so don't allow your anxiety or trepidation or if you're a new player, don't allow that to stop you from getting out there and meeting these people, because if you're going through it, so are they.
Exactly. Like, just like Simon says in the chat, his anxiety always gets him every time he goes and plays anywhere. And you're not the only one that feels that way, man. Most people feel that way because you don't. One of the worst things about the internet is like the horror stories. Like you don't want to run into that guy, and gratefully I never have with this group. Competitive scenes, or you're gonna run into that guy, but you know what I mean. But it's you just don't want to have a bad experience. Like for instance, when I play, like my cadence of play is like every other week. I don't play every week. I go every other weekend. So like I don't like this is like so when it comes to my weekend to go out, like these are my hours in the evening to play this game that I model. Yeah, I don't want it to be ruined. You know what I mean? And I want to have a great time. So it's like I end up putting pressure on myself in that regard, but it always works out great. One of the things that all of us have been a tournament organizer at one point or another. And one of the things that I found with growing a community is if for some reason, if you have an event, like for instance, when Caesar basically kind of corralled all these small knit communities for Kill Team, and then corralled them all together, that we would like all go to one store on one night, as opposed to having different nights where two people played, three people played, and we would get a a good group out. But I don't know why. There's something about a tournament that brings out even more. I mean, people that I didn't know, right? People would come in from another city. People would come in from other cities once they hear that there's a tournament, and this goes back to don't be afraid. One of our tips: don't be afraid, because while yes, tournaments have the competitive scene comes with some stigmas and stuff like that. If you want to grow a community, we highly recommend that you take the initiative and to try to organize a tournament, which means you're going to have to be the tournament organizer. And it's super rewarding. It
really is. It really is.
It's super rewarding.
I love doing it.
Yeah, nerve-wracking too, but when it's done, like for instance, we go out, we'd have 13 people, 12, 10 people show up on a Friday night to go play Kill Team, and we'd have 20 people at a tournament. Like, where do these other people come from? And we constantly have 18, 20 people come out from tournaments, and it's just like I don't know why. It's just like honey to flies, man. They go to That's the worst analogy, but they love it. So we would highly recommend. I know, Caesar, you got any tips for like the first time tournament organizer?
I think really a big thing is just to get with somebody that's already done it. And it might not be a bad idea, like if they're available, to make sure they kind of are just side saddling with you and assist you in any ways. And if you're trying to, hey, you're thinking about doing this, like sometimes with anything, planning is the most important thing, even before executing, right? It's like planning it out, thinking about the things, and bouncing it off to somebody that's already done it. You know, that's one of the key things to trying to do it.
One of my favorite things about TOing is the organization. Like you were saying, the organization is like super important, but it's also a lot of fun. A lot of times, like anytime me and Caesar and Mike would throw a tournament or something, we go
Wings.
We sit. We get wing. I was just gonna say we go. We sit down somewhere. We get some wings. We have a beer or two. We iron out some plans, and over the next couple of weeks, we do that once a week, maybe once every other week, and get everything in line, get our ducks in a row, and then when it's game day, everything goes off without a hitch.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because my first get together with y'all was when y'all were planning a tournament, and I met with all of y'all over at that one was
Mad Pecker.
Was that it? And we all had wings there that
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
That was my first actual like little foray
Yep.
with your little group as you're growing and kind of moving out, was all getting together and having wings. I remember that.
Maple bacon wings, baby.
You know, one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about, and Will kind of hit it in how when you're trying to grow an event, and I know we're talking about TOing, and you were talking about how certain people would just show up, but it's common in TO, you know, in tournaments where you might have some people that show up and they're probably not the best ambassadors for the game. And what was awesome about Friday Night Fluff Fights was they would kind of take a noob and make sure they're like, hey, let's try to make sure we don't put them with a certain player that crushes them, right? Like they actually sits down and teaches them the game, and so they can have a positive experience with it. So when you're trying to build a community, it's so much harder. I know Will and I, we talked about this, and I think we've all talked about it. Is like, you got to be careful when you're trying to build a community. It's like you get these new guys, they're excited about the game themselves. All it takes is a one bad experience to lose somebody that 2-3 people have been working on, having to learn to play, had them come up to a tournament, and then they're no longer around. So because of that thinking, that foresight that like what Will was talking about, like I think it's very important to make sure that when you're trying to get people to come into the game or build the game up, that you kind of also put them with the right people to build them.
And that was something we were very intentional about, because I you know, like you said, I'd seen so many people leave the hobby after just getting in and getting their little starter force together, coming out, and then just get decimated. You know, like I've seen new players go up against, you know, some guys that were, you know, less than desirable to play against at that time, that just like they didn't even get a turn. Like turn one, you know, top of the turn, wipe them out, you know, now pack up, you know, you drove out here, you got all your stuff ready, and you set out and we rolled up the dice, but now you don't even get to take a turn, pack up all your stuff, and then go on home. And so we tried to be very intentional about making sure that that didn't happen, and that if, you know, if we did have some of the folks that would play like that, we made sure that the newer people didn't get matched up with them, because I learned a long time ago that when I do a teaching game with somebody, with any game, not just 40K, but any game, I say, hey, okay, I see what you're trying to do there, but as a veteran player, this is how I would respond. This is how I would react in this case. And then, you know, if they say, oh, okay, I understand how that's going to interact now, then let them take that back and then try something different, because it's all about learning. In a teaching game, in a tutorial game, it's not about winning or just decimating your opponent. It's about helping them learn the game so they can get to a level that you're both comfortable at, and then that's when you get those real good games. But you know, that's my philosophy, and most of my tutorial games I lose, because I tell my opponent how I'm going to react, and they're
Yeah,
able
like-
to go, okay, no, I'm not going to do that now.
Teach them how to beat you.
But yeah, but you know, and I think that you know, I don't intentionally lose, but I also think that if they win, they feel better and they're more likely to come back for more.
Yeah, and also kind of what you're doing is kind of with a new player, cultivating the kind of player that you want in your group or in your community. You know what I mean? Like, be that. If you're doing a learn to play, even if you're not doing a learn to play, just be that opponent that, oh, hey, I forgot to use my psychic. Can I go back? Absolutely. Yeah, go back. That's fine. You know what I mean?
Be the guy that you would want to play.
Yeah,
against.
exactly.
Exactly.
So you know, a lot of this is kind of like we're putting the onus on you, which is kind of the whole point. That if you want to grow the community, you got two options. You either gonna jump in somewhere where the train's already moving and be a part of that, which is awesome. But if nobody's doing that, then you can't wait for the cavalry. It's got to be you. So if you like Crisis Protocol and there aren't a whole lot of people playing it, and you think it's awesome, and you think a lot of people would like it, then that's right. That's your opportunity to grow it and stuff like that. One of the
absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't sit there on the sidelines and be like, well, I'm going to start playing this game once somebody else builds the community. Because if you wait, that day may never come.
Right, because a lot of, you know, it's so funny because this popped in my head. But a lot of what happens is, when we're talking about tabletop war games, you're talking about Warhammer 40K, probably Age of Sigmar. Those are the tentpole IPs, and Games Workshop is the game producer of all of essentially this hobby. So those are the big boys. So a lot of times, you're going to have that community. You're going to have 40K Age of Sigmar community. Doesn't probably need a whole lot of growing because they're super popular. So if you want to play anything other than those, chances are you're going to trying to convince those players who are also tabletop players who are into the hobby of Warhammer or of tabletop wargaming to go like, you know what? Instead of going out for this Friday and bringing my tanks and stuff, I'm going to bring the X-Men because I learned to play this game. It's going to be awesome.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because, you know, I just said my first little foray with y'all as a group was that night eating wings. But I remember we talked about Kill Team because that's what we intended to do, and that's why we were there. But then I also remember at the end of the night standing out in the parking lot outside my truck for 20 minutes talking about Malifaux.
Oh, yeah. And you had just got that truck, too.
Yeah, but you know, I played Malifaux. I really enjoyed it, and the community kind of died down, and I wanted to play again, but I knew the only way to get that was to share that passion with other people and convince them to play, and then that helps me be able to play. And then you know, and now I see like Caesar and Bill and all these other folks are now playing and posting pictures, and it makes me excited, and hopefully I'll get some games of Malifaux in soon.
I think the last bit of like the last tip, and something, Will, I know that you can, because I mean, like I said, one of the most visible members of Red Star on our Facebook group is to leverage social media to cultivate a community of your particular game, or to just a community in general. Can you speak to how you've been able to do that with Facebook? Because I look at our Facebook group with over 700 members, posts every day, all the time, and I think it's a very healthy group.
Well,
Agreed.
Yeah. I think that for one, using social media, it's free. It costs us nothing, so it's not like, you know, we have to go out and pay for a website and stuff like that. But when I post things on the page so we have our own Facebook group, not page rather. I always try to post things that I think people will want to talk about, because that's whenever I post anything, that is the intent, is to spur engagement, having people talking. And so even if it's something as simple as, you know, what are you working on, you know, this week, or, you know, I just painted this model. What are you painting on? Things like that. and that gets people talking, because people will write in there, hey, this is what I'm working on, and then they'll post pictures of their Eldari or their Black Templars, and other people will comment like, hey, that's great. How did you do this? And so now we're going from, hey, this is what I painted, to now they're engaging each other, and now they're saying, teach me how you did that. So they're growing and learning just from something as simple as somebody posting a picture of their own model. And I think that's great. That gets, like I said, it gets people talking.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, I think that's the best way to go about it. And then also it gets, say from those conversations of, hey, how did you paint that? Now they're going to go to, hopefully, hey, let's get a game together.
Right. One of the things I've seen, and Caesar does this a lot, is he joins. We have our gaming group at the Red Star Gaming Group Facebook group, but Caesar also joins smaller Facebook groups that are specific to that game. And if there's an event, he'll not only leverage Red Star like as the big group, but he'll go and he'll cross post everywhere else where people might be interested, even in games that are related. So like if there was a Kill Team event, he'll also do it in another skirmish thing. It's like, hey, you know what I mean? We're having an event. Here's all the details and stuff like that. I've always, I was like, that's a great idea, just to cross-pollinate the message across the smaller communities. You want to speak to that, Caesar, on how you organize just through social media?
Yeah, I think really, a lot of people play. We're a small community, right? There's not a lot of tabletop players. So when you start getting into some of the things, I think there are a lot of people that play skirmish games, or they have a particular game that they like to play that's very similar, and maybe they may not be playing Kill Team at the time. So like going to these other websites, some of the same people that play Malifaux will play Kill Team, or they played Wild West Exodus. There's some similarities. So like sometimes getting the word out, some people might not be tracking. They might not even, it's not as crazy as it sounds, they might not even be on the Red Star page all that often. So they might be primarily focused where they hit into this one little group. So I think it's kind of interesting, like somebody that you would have thought you would have heard from, or they would have seen it on Red Star. We'd always say this, like, hey man, we've posted this on Red Star plenty of times. They're like, oh yeah, I seen this on this little web page, and it wasn't even, Gates of Antari or something like that. You're like, man, I thought that was a dead game that nobody played. And it happened to be like some of the players that were still kind of keeping an eye out on it, seeing something else, and they'd speak their interest. The next thing you know, you'd hear from them and say, hey, I don't typically play that game. I typically played this game, but I was always interested in playing, Kill Team. And vice versa with even like in Infinity, I had some of the same things with Infinity. I think you get kind of a particular type of player, and sometimes it's easier if they're like a skirmish type of game player. Mm-hmm. They play more than one skirmish game because they have the time.
Right.
So hitting those pages is important.
I think that one thing I would also say about social media is that don't be afraid to take ownership. So what I'm prone to do is that if I have interest in a game or I want to grow a community, I make the Facebook page for it. So even though I am a member of Red Star and quite active in that Facebook group, I started the San Antonio Kill Team page. And then as we grew, we brought in folks like Caesar and some of the other people, and now they're also admins of that group, and we were able to grow the community that way. But if you want to get more people interested into your hobby where you're at, and there's no local page, don't be afraid to start that page up and create it yourself to get the word out there to say, hey, I want to start meeting every Thursday or every Sunday or whatever the case may be, or just engaging people to talk about, hey, I want to get into this, but I don't know where to start. Is there other interest in that? So take ownership. Start those pages if they don't already exist.
Something I wanted to kind of touch on, and I know when we talk about engaging with the local stores, like there might be the necessity to just verify, like, yeah, if other people play, right? But the other part is like they might not even carry products, or they might not even be hosting events. And so, like when we're talking about building a community, I think one of the things that I noticed from a game store in Colorado, which I think in some cases I see some stores have interest in particular games and they have people that know how to play them, like Magic. I've seen, I walk into the store and I'll see some of the staff, assisting and playing in the games or being a part of the games. I think it puts it over the top. If you're talking about building a community, like it's one thing for somebody that just does this on the side, like us doing it on the side and saying, hey, I'm going to show up on this time. I'm talking to these people. We're going to be there, show up. These people have things happen and sometimes they're not always there. Right. And so the community shouldn't necessarily stagger. Right. If you have a store that's engaged, I think there's something to be said about that coming from that point. And I think we have some stores that are kind of focused on certain things and support in certain ways. But I think the X factor to increasing the level of gameplay is store involvement. Like, Do they know what units you need to have? Do they know, hey, you play Kill Team? Like, I got this guy over here. He plays it. Come on over here and let talk to him about like what he needs to get and what he needs to do in order to be able to play Kill Team or whatever it is. That's something I don't see all the time. Like, it depends. It really depends. Like, it depends on the game, depends on the store. But that's the X factor, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any help that you can get, in particularly from a store, is fantastic. I know that, and I can only speak personally to my store. There's a lot of awesome stores in San Antonio, but when I go to the one that I Dragon's Lair that's near me, and I do events with them, they're always, over the top supportive, from price support to facility, just anything I need is been awesome. And I know that's the case for other stores in town as well. But yeah, like to your point, Caesar, absolutely. If they're invested also in helping grow your community, then that's even better, because then they can also use their social media to leverage Learn to Play nights or leverage your events and stuff like that.
And we've seen it happen. Yeah,
and we've seen it happen. So yeah, I think I'm hoping we have a lot of good ideas. If your ears are twitching, that that you have that passion, which I think is going to be something that if you are going to take this journey to try to create and cultivate an awesome community, it's going to take some passion on your part, between you and maybe some like-minded individuals to
feel the dreams, Mike. Feel the dreams
to be able to do it, and it's doable, absolutely doable.
And the last thing that I would add, and we talked about this in our pre-show thing, is to be patient. And I cannot stress that enough, that building a community does not happen overnight. So be patient if it doesn't take off right away, but also be patient with the people that are becoming part of your community, because they may not know the rules as well as you do, or they may need some more time or more advice or whatever the case may be. But if you're going to do those organized teaching game nights, just be patient with the people, and they'll get it eventually. And then once they do, they are going to increase your community exponentially, because hopefully they're also going to bring in other people, as my boss likes to say, they will be force multipliers for your community.
Yeah. Well, do we have any last minutes?
No, I think we've pretty well covered everything, and the other thing is that, when we say also with TOs, we don't just mean tournaments. If you want to organize, I used to do tournaments all the time, but like I organized right before COVID hit the Battle for Sonora campaign, which was all narrative, and that took off like I could never have expected in a million years.
That was the most successful thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be, 4 or 5 of us meeting once every other week, just playing games and having a good time. But the community did it. I didn't do it. All I did is say, hey, I want to do this. If you want to be part of it, come out and join. And I posted my format and what I intended to do and whatnot. But the players that participated ran with it like I could have never in a million years have expected. And it was great. It was so much fun, and probably one of the most memorable experiences as a gamer that I've had in my 20 some odd years of gaming. In 40K, probably the most prolific thing that I've ever done, and it was so much fun. But be patient when it gets started, and if you're passionate enough and you work hard enough, you can build it too.
Yep. Yes, 100%. So we have Josh, why don't you tell the people what we got in store for our next show?
Okay. All right. For our next show, I'm super excited. With the holidays coming up and everything like that, we're going to have Christmas. We're going to be around a tree, hopefully. So we want to touch on what are some good games to play with the family. Like what's going to be fun when there's nothing left to do, presents are opened, everybody's just sitting around. Like, let's bust out a deck of cards or something, or let's, play a little something and just get everybody laughing. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about some real good games to do that with, just to kill some time with the fam.
Right. The answer is Apocalypse.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about, you're not going to play 40K with your little cousins, but maybe you can play Munchkin or something like that. And We're going to touch about all that kind of stuff next week.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to generate a list to go along with that show of just like some good recommendations of games and stuff. And it's going to come out a little bit before Christmas. So that way it'll give you guys time to maybe go to one of your local game shops and pick up some of this stuff.
One of my favorite things about card games, about they're $25.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, Will, any last minutes?
I was gonna say, unless you get like me, and then you have to collect every set of Munchkin that they put out,
and every
with all the expansion,
DuckTales.
But yeah, I look forward to it. And again, if you're not listening to this at time of show, and you have any questions, write in the comments, because we check the comments on all our videos and try to make sure that we're engaging the listeners and providing any advice that we can. So, or look us up on Facebook. We're a Red Star Gaming Group. We also have a Red Star page on Facebook. But if you have any questions about, hey, what would be the best way about starting X game or X event, reach out to us, and hopefully we can pass our experience on to you.
That's right. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening in. And if you listen in after the show, thank you for tuning in. And we hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you guys on the next show.
See y'all soon.
See ya.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.